A very good evening to our viewers. Welcome to ELITETV and you're watching Open Debate in English. And today we bring you the topic, Political Development Post-Poll Results. Before the June 4th Lok Sabha election results, there was much speculation about potential leadership changes and the possibility of the central government imposing president's rule in Manipur. Contrary to expectations, this didn't happen. And the INC won both seats in Manipur and the BJP only secured about 240 seats nationally, falling short of a majority. The Chief Minister accepted responsibility for the BJP's defeat in Manipur but refused to resign. He said that there is concerns about drug mafias and illegal infiltrators in Manipur. Amit Shah, who is now reinstated as Union Home Minister, promised to bring peace to Manipur by addressing the trust deficit between the Meitei and Kuki communities, but progress remains to be seen. And even today, we have just found news that the Home Minister has been holding high-level security talks to discuss about the Manipur situation, although the Chief Minister is excluded in that high-security meeting. To discuss and debate on this matter, our panelists are present here today in the ELITETV studio. Let us take a moment to welcome and introduce our panelists. Our first panelist for tonight is Oja N. Satyajeet, Bureau Chief, UNI. Welcome to Open Debate, Oja.
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you.
And our second panelist for tonight is Dr. Deben Bachaspatimayum, Consultant, Peacebuilding Program. Oja, welcome to Open Debate.
Thank you.
And our third panelist for tonight is Oja Dr. Arambam Noni, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science, DM University. Oja, welcome to Open Debate. I'll start with Oja Satyajeet first. We have heard today in the newspapers that the governor of Manipur has met with the President of India and also met with the Home Minister and also the Finance Minister to discuss about issues, even including the effects of Cyclone Rimal and also the law and order situation in Manipur. But the thing that can be translated in this meeting with the governor is that the law and order of a state is held by the Chief Minister. The Chief Minister is supposed to be in charge of the law and order of a state. But it seems that the Chief Minister has been bypassed in this meeting because we know from the past year that the Chief Minister has not gained any audience from the Prime Minister regarding this issue in Manipur. So, do you think this is a prelude for the central government to completely take over the state machineries? Because we know for sure that the Article 355 is in a limbo situation in Manipur. So do you think that this situation of the governor bypassing the state machineries and meeting and discussing about the Manipur law and order situation with the Home Minister and the President is a prelude to completely take over the state machineries? Oja Satyajeet, please take away.
All right. Thank you, Amrita, for having me here in this wonderful discussion. I would first start by saying that the governor of Manipur, Anusha Uke, she is an activist. She has been involved in various political, social activities prior to her appointment as governor of Manipur. She is very active and she has been working quite considerably to help those people who have been displaced, and I think it is quite good news that even though the Chief Minister, as you mentioned, was not able to meet the Prime Minister for a pretty long time until the inaugural, until a few days ago. So I think the meeting, calling on the President itself, it sends a message to the people that she is seriously concerned about the matter. And if you read the press statement issued yesterday, in the last sentence, it was stated that the President, Draupadi Murmu, she assured that the government will give all possible assistance from our office to resolve the Manipur crisis. That is a welcome statement. Let's welcome him. Because this is a situation where we are saying that beggars can't be choosers. We are accepting every assurances, we are accepting any assistance which come from whichever organization, from whichever office. So let's welcome it. And during the meeting, the Finance Minister also visited the President's place, and she also met her, and I think the Finance Minister will also consider giving a certain amount of money to resolve the Manipur crisis, because finance is quite necessary. And lastly, the governor also met the Home Minister. I hope very lively discussions must have been there. We don't know what exactly transpired. And as we were discussing about the central state responsibility in Manipur, we can say that the people really do not know who is in charge. We have been saying repeatedly again and again, we have been discussing that we don't know who is in charge. And this is a great injustice to the people of Manipur. People of Manipur want to know who is in charge. And during this critical juncture, if the center creates a confusion, I think the Chief Minister of Manipur should assert himself. He should fight for his position, he should fight for the dignity of his chair, and he should be able to win the confidence of the people by asserting himself. And when there is confusion, there is always a chaos, because when we do not know who is in charge, there is always confusion. And confusion, it is worse when there is a crisis, and we have been facing this crisis for over 1 year now. And I think the steps taken up by the government, it has also led to people questioning the federal structure of this country. It has a federal structure, even though many our political friends will object to it. But I think in the constitution we said that it is a federal structure. And this lies to a situation where those who are wielding charges, because for example we say the security advisor, all the DGP or whosoever, they are wielding power without responsibility. They are not responsible to the people. The Chief Minister is responsible to the people because they are accountable to the people. Their works, it is analyzed, and every 5 years we are able to judge their performance and vote them out. I think, and the problem starts when people who are in charge, they are not responsible to the people, and that is exactly what we are seeing today. And I think this is a time when people also ask if the government, how is it tackling the situation, and whether it is a silent spectator or is it really tackling the issue. The army, it has sent quite a number of army security personnel. They say sometimes they say 45,000, they say 60,000. We have not seen that. We don't know what they are doing. And lastly, we hope that as you mentioned, around 4 p.m. today, the Union Home Minister is presiding a matter. The meeting must have already started. But the problem is, the head of the state, that is the Chief Minister, the Chief Executive Officer, the de facto ruler of this state, that is the Chief Minister, he is not a part of the meeting.
Right, so, because Satyajeet, because the question arises because not only Biren Singh is the Chief Minister of Manipur, he is also the Home Minister, also the Finance Minister. So in the meeting of the governor with the Finance Minister also requires the attention or the presence of the Chief Minister.
The very absence, it sends a message. It sends some messages. One message is that the center is doing whatever it can do to resolve the crisis without the involvement of the state government. It is not a good message. Because without the involvement of the state government, without the involvement of the stakeholders, without the involvement of the civil societies, women's body, students' body, the Manipur crisis cannot be resolved. Because it's deeply rooted, and people are suffering for quite a considerable period of time, and the wounds are very deep. The more the fight goes on, the wounds will deepen, and I think this is a time when the center really takes up the issue in a very transparent and accountable manner.
Interesting point, Satyajeet. I'll come back to you in the second round. Now I'll move on to Deben. As we have heard from Satyajeet, the big question that arises in such a matter is that who is really in charge of Manipur? Because in an interview given by the Chief Minister yesterday to the India Today TV, he said that he has expressed his displeasure against the DGP and also the security advisor regarding an intelligence that was issued from the Chief Minister's office in January this year regarding of a possible outbreak in Jiribam, and he said that this notice has been ignored and there has not been any action taken by the DGP and the security advisor. So he has expressed his displeasure on that, and he also said that this conflict could be resolved in 2 to 3 months. The question is, everyone is asking, as our first panelist, Satyajeet, also said, who is really in charge of Manipur, and if the Chief Minister is really excluded from such high-level meetings, then him speaking such words, does it have any credence? Because the people do really need to know. So what are your thoughts on that?
See, in the first place, even before this violent conflict broke out, and in fact, the whole the violent conflict processes begin well before May.
Right.
You know, if you can take it from, if you look at the series of incidents that have taken place where government declared war on drug, you know,
Yes.
and then also took some actions in the against the enclosure in the forest land and all that. These are all the background to what actually happened. And May 3 was actually just waiting for a trigger. That's it. So the background was built up already. So what I'm trying to say is that well before all these conflict processes began, the second term of the BJP government in Manipur was identified, was declared as double-engine government. So we must keep this in our focus when discussing on who is in charge of the state here. So one can always argue that the state government is in charge. Sometimes you can say that because it's the same party, double engine, you try to understand what double engine means. When one fails, the other will start, right? So there can be any situation when the state government is failing, the center will take over without any due processes again. Because this is a confusion that because it is double engine government, the confusion has been created in the minds of the people. Raising this question, who is in charge? And it is bound to, because it's a double engine. You never had this kind of double engine government anytime in Congress period also. So this is a new thing that is happening, right? And then especially when Manipur is located in a very sensitive international boundary where in the neighborhood there is a war going on, right? So this, any common people can also come to the conclusion that state government cannot alone take charge of the situation. Given the regional conflict context within which Manipur is happening, the center has to come in some way or the other, in subtle way or in covert or open way, in whatever way it thinks is right. And this is what has been going on. So the very question of who is in charge is sometimes very difficult if you want to put it black and white, but sometimes it is easy to, conclusively say, look, center has been in charge in most of the time ever since this conflict broke out. Because before this conflict broke out, the junta took place, right? A year before. So you can imagine, and then you have all these dynamics in the regional security and the politics and all that. The impact of which is being felt here, which is complicating the situation in Manipur also. So this is one thing. Second thing is that we must understand that in India particularly, whenever there is a conflict, whether it is interstate on boundary or on any resources like river, water resources, or conflict like ethnic situations or communal violence. So many types of conflicts are there. The state, when I said the state, I'm meaning the central government as also the state, but mostly here the state government, the central government is always party to the conflict. Except in the case of interstate boundary like Kaveri water, so there is a tribunal set up for that. Tribunal, what I'm looking at is that whenever you see the central government is not party to it, there is an institutional mechanisms to address them, right? But in the case of ethnic conflict, or for that matter, communal riots that India has been part of it, it has been part of Indian culture, political culture, to have communal violence or ethnic or some kind of Maoist armed-related conflict to be part of its political culture as such, right? So here in this, like in the case of ethnic conflict, there is no such mechanisms, right? Constitutional mechanisms to address the issue. So therefore, here is a case where the central government plays double role. It is a director as well as actor at the same time. So when we are talking about, in a new context that I'm talking about is the mandate of the recently concluded Lok Sabha election. Has sent a very strong message to the central government that it has to act now in a befitting way, not the way it did before the election. Second thing is what the chief of RSS spoke about, nearly advising the priorities of the central government that they cannot wait anymore. Very strong message. So you have to put these two things into consideration to talk about what's going on in Manipur today, who should be playing a role in that. And I feel, to conclude your question, I feel that central government has to respond to it. because it still is a double engine government, and because central government has been part of the conflict. Now, please note this point, it has been part of the conflict, which means what? It has been part of the problem. So therefore, now is a time for it to decide to become part of the solution and do whatever is possible.
Very
all right, and to that extent, the recent meeting of governor and all of this is happening, and this should happen. And then my only last point that I would say is that whenever the state takes initiative to resolve some problem or conflict, it always tends to leave behind the people who have the lived-in experience of the conflict.
Right.
And this is unfair. My only suggestion and humble appeal to the central government and both the state government, to the governor also, because this is something that we have already time and again appealed through our written petition and all that, that they should take into confidence of the people who have lived in experience of this conflict in terms of arriving on the solutions.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So if you still keep out the people, you are waiting for another round of conflict when political situation changes. That's all for this round.
Very good point. But just before that, Depen, I just would like to know your thoughts regarding the double engine government that is supposed to be a very strong type of a government. But in that kind of a situation, as you said, the center is party to such a conflict. Do you think that when there is two centers of command regarding a conflict, do you think that that will be a cause for another disaster? Because there is no just one absolute center of command. There are two centers of command now, but the center and the state. So isn't that going to cause another or more rounds of conflict that we have been seeing the past year?
See, as long as we don't observe any serious difference between the BJP in Manipur and the government and the central government, right? BJP government here in Manipur and central government, as long as you don't see a serious difference between the two, I don't think there is unnecessarily any confusion between the two, because the chief minister has to fall into line. Okay, whatever the central government now under BJP takes, what we call as appropriate action. Thus far, it had not taken any appropriate action so far.
Yes.
It has been part of the problem, as I said. Now, after this mandate of the 12th Lok Sabha and also some kind of advice on prioritizing Manipur issue from the RSS headquarters, they have to respond to the conflict situation very appropriately, authentically. To these two words are very important for me. Authentically, truthfully, I am saying, right? Truthfully and appropriately. Not doing, you do one kind of a diagnosis and give another kind of a treatment. Not that way. No mismatch anymore. So they have to be very truthful and take appropriate actions, which I think should happen. My only humble appeal again through your channel is that they should take into consideration what the peoples are thinking about. What are the ideas for peace of the people? The Kuki, Naga, Meitei, all of these, like politically organized communities have experienced, including Meitei Pangal, have experienced violent conflict in their life. So they must be having some kind of idea on what peace is for them. Unless the ideas of peace of the central government and the people come together, you can never have a sustainable peace in this. Not even the security that the central government is so looking for over the last 60 years after this region was merged. So what central government is looking for is firm security arrangement, because it is an international boundary.
Right.
For that, they have to trust the people. In order to gain the trust of the people, they have to do few steps to develop that confidence, confidence building measures with they have to come in, they have to talk to the people.
Of course.
Not only discussion in the government, different sections and army, this and that. No, that's not the peace people are looking for. People look for a peace definition that is inclusive.
Right.
Okay, where everybody will feel belong to, and that is what should translate on the ground. Then only the security that the central government of India is seeking for all these years after the regions were merged will be met, plus people's peace will also be met. So I think to that kind of perspective, the central government has to develop, so that because the state has experienced enough violent conflict of all kinds, right? It is time people also look for peace, without sacrificing or without any compromise to the security needs of the central government and also their own. is Meitei, is Kuki, is Naga, is Bengal, or is any of the community who are settled here as citizens of India. So these are some of the kind of like framework that they should, I think, if they consider that very actively, they will certainly find a very firm, sustainable peace and security in the region.
Very good point. Key word being inclusive of all stakeholders of the region. On that note, I'll take that to Oja Noni. We have just heard from our two panelists and saying that who is really in charge and who needs to be included in such a peace dialogue, if so. And today, before we come to that, I'll just like to recall the statement made by the Chief Minister in the India Today interview yesterday. He also said that regarding that that intel provided by the Chief Minister's office, if the DGP and a security advisor has been found to be negligent of such orders, then he will take appropriate actions against them. But the question is that, is he in the right position to fire them? Because it is in the public knowledge that the DGP and the security advisor has both been appointed from center. And do you think that the Chief Minister has any power to remove them from their position? And also, what are your thoughts regarding what our other panelists also said previously? So, please give your
first of all, thank you. And what we have to understand first of all is that we have an elected government. And an elected government cannot be overridden by another government as long as it enjoys its majority in the House. And as of today, I think we have a majority government in the state of Manipur. So if you look at the Indian federal system, it's a federal system with a unitary bias. This is what political scientists have argued all the years.
Right.
So I think if you're asking who's really in charge of the state, I think these questions slightly looks difficult to answer for the reason that we have a Chief Minister. And I think being a Chief Minister of the state, he is the head of the state. And if you say, if you have, and we all have read the news item which is being written in the paper today, that yesterday, His Excellency the Governor of Manipur met 3 key official ministers of the country. Here I think the point is, there has been a lot of question raised by people from all quarters whether there is Article 355 imposed on Manipur. Sometimes, because if you see constitution, act on the advice of the country has a prime minister form of government. The chief ministers are supposed to handle the popular affairs as long as there's a popular government. There's a popular government in the state. So I think that part is questionable as far as the meeting of the ministers are concerned by Her Excellency. That question needs to be talked about. But there can be another reading as well, because she talked mostly non-political issues like, say, giving aid to the affected farmers, flood victims, and even resettlement or rehabilitation of the displaced persons. So these are more or less apolitical issues. Therefore, I think these perhaps can also be talked about by her. Coming back to the question, I think there are a lot of confusions. There are a lot of confusion, but this confusion doesn't really makes one to say who the head of the state. The question more is of why the conflict has not been solved, why the conflict continues. These are better questions to be asked. It looks like, even if the real in charge is, for instance, the central government. But even then the problem continues. So I think what is lacking today is the initiative, the hard initiative on the part of the central government and also the state government. You have the same government, the center, and the state of Manipur. So as long as government is concerned, I think there is no such. We have not seen any such drastic, difference between the two governments in terms of its approach to the present crisis. Because substantially we haven't seen any kind of thesis being produced on resolving, because the thesis that has been produced are also fluctuating at times. In initial days, I understand saying that the issue is becoming infiltration. And we have already heard the former Minister of External Affairs saying there are issues available.
Yeah.
So these are, there are fluctuating statements given by the political leaders as well. These actually complicates the political issues in Manipur. Now, if you look at why these problems getting complicated is because I think that the parties which are in conflict has not been met to engaged unilaterally or through consensually. We have not seen the parties coming together for any kind of interaction. This has also, affected the scope of peace in the state of Manipur. So I have a feeling that, as of today, the House is very divided. The meeting that we are talking about today is hosted by the Home Minister. It has been reported that the meeting is represented by the Chief Secretary and the Security Advisor of the state.
Yes, excluding the Chief Minister.
That is being reported. And we actually don't know what has been transpired. But if you look at the kind of the meeting that is being held, it looks like it's more of a stock taking now, restock taking.
Okay.
Because there was an announcement from the Minister of Home Affairs before the declaration of election results that after 4th June, that is post-poll times, the issue of Manipur will be taken up. We can also read these meeting which is going on right now probably in conjunction with a statement that had come from RSS chief Mohan Bhagavat that can also be kept in mind. So I think there's a pressure building on the central government to look into the problem. But more or less, if you look at the nature of the conflict, if you look at the nature of violence, the dissatisfaction of the people, ordinary citizens in the state of Manipur is more with the central government because it looks like there's an extensive number of security Manipur. The question now remains is why have they not acted sufficiently? In the case of Jiribam, people have been arguing that the security forces have done a mistake by actually transferring population instead of protecting them at their own places. So in these kind of format of dealing with the conflict, I think the issue of displacement has got deepened, and the recent testifying that kind of a story. So on the whole, I think the entire puzzle of Manipur conflict has grown so much more because of the nature of the conflict as well, and also because of the nature response of the state. I think as of today, there are two ways of doing it. The government has to act being an elected government, being a government enjoying popular majority in the House, and they have every right to do it because there are autonomous areas where the state can act as far as law enforcing activities are concerned. So we are reportedly having around 30 plus police personnel in the state of Manipur. We can employ these, and we can in fact help them work to actually sustain our free movement on highways. So these things can be done. And we can also make our police forces act. I think these are the areas where the state government needs to rethink. And I think if you look at the trend, if you look at the number of days and months past, I think people are very disillusioned with these developments. What we expect is that the state government has to take a very proactive action against these offenders, and also the central government has to find out a new approach because unfortunately what I see is that none of the coalition partners have spoken out on Manipur issue very prominently. That is my concern.
And also, Noni, it's right that it's even though the government in Manipur is an elected government and enjoying a very good majority, regarding the double engine and also the central government taking over into the state missionaries, the thing is that it looks like the state government of Manipur is always waiting for instructions from the central government on how to proceed with policies, on how to proceed with things. And also it looks like the central government now, looking back from the past 1 year, it looks like the central government is now bypassing the state government completely. I'd just like to compare this situation. If this happened in a state like West Bengal or Tamil Nadu, this wouldn't have taken place, because they will speak out, they will rebel against it, and they will try to just do what is necessary for the state. So do you think it is because the state government is incompetent in Manipur, or what is going on? Because we would like to know.
You have raised a very important question, which is very relevant today to talk about. The first thing that I see is that the state of government of Manipur has to use its federal power in maintaining law and order. That part is missing, I think. So that part has to be assertively asked for and acted upon. That's one. The other story is that I've been arguing in my writings and in my speeches that if you look at the nature of politics that is evolving in the country, I have a feeling that small states are having a difficult time. Because if you talk about West Bengal, if you talk about Orissa, if you talk about Bihar or Tamil Nadu, for instance, they're all big states contributing a bigger number of member of parliament in the house, or in the people's house in New Delhi. If you look at the comparative strengths of the states, these are very different. There are differences. So I have a feeling that the smaller states are having a difficult time, and particularly when you have the same government, it looks like the central government is having an upper hand. But moreover, one can also argue with the fact that states like Mizoram probably, or Nagaland, for instance, or Sikkim, for example, there are regional issues being flagged up as and when required. So that part is not coming up from Manipur. So what I feel is that even if you have a BJP government in Manipur, there are spaces, there are rooms where the state government can become very adamant as far as the integrity of the state is concerned, as far as the law and order maintenance is concerned, as far as free movement of the civilians are concerned, or even as far as the maintenance of tranquility in the state of Manipur is concerned. I suggest that the state government should now act with a stronger political will and even question the central government whenever it is required.
Very good point, Oja. I'll come back to you again in the next round. Now I'll move on to Oja Satyajeet. Regarding the state of Manipur being a border state and also being a very strategic position of the country, it looks like there is a lot of geopolitical fallout from Myanmar into Manipur, as we have been discussing for a long time in Manipur. Also, regarding today's newspaper, it has been reported that almost 50,000, I think, almost 50 companies of CAPF Central Forces have arrived, and it is told that they will be sanctioned about 55 locations, both in the hill and valley, and also the Union Home Ministry will be bearing all of the costs for this. The thing is that it is said that they will be housed in prefabricated barracks and not just makeshift barracks, because I put emphasis on the prefabricated barracks because it looks like these companies will be staying here for a very long time. In addition to that, we already have about 60,000 to 80,000 security forces already in the state. So what do you interpret? How do you interpret this?
As I said earlier, any step, any decision which the center or the state government take, I think it should be pro-people. And as I was listening to our two esteemed speakers, I certainly remember there was a talk when I was in college. There was a talk during those times. Congress was in power, and those who spoke was from BJP and left. They said that the Congress suffered from high command. This is called an illness called high command. The state, they are not able to take any decision. Whatever they do, they take decision from the center. So the high command culture, this is adopted from Germany, Nazi, and when people tend to think that those sitting in New Delhi is superior to us, those sitting in Delhi are more intelligent, I think this is a wrong step. And I think this particular at this particular juncture, we should remind ourselves that high command structure, we should not follow it and we should not believe it. And all those holding public office, just like the Chief Minister or whatever people elected by the people, they are holding public offices. They are accountable to the people, they are accountable to everyone. And I think before coming to your question, there was so far there has been just one assembly session after the crisis started. I think we need an assembly session now, because in the last assembly session, the Chief Minister gave a very long speech about how the crisis started in Manipur, what the government did, and the opposition also put up lots of questions. And discussions in assembly is very important, because it is people watch it, and the government cannot give wrong assurances also, because there will be a court letter by the assurance committee also. So I think I would just put up in a matter that we need a full discussion on Manipur, and it should be done regularly, so that the people know what exactly the government is doing. The Chief Minister himself now commands more than about 1 lakh government employee, and about say 30,000 to 40,000 security police, IRB, and the number changes from 30 to 40. We do not know the exact number. They have lots of people in reserve also. I think if you use them in a very proper manner, the crisis can be resolved. And the people have been, if you see the train during the last 1.5, and all that, if you look at all the discussions, TV channel, and especially during the elections, the main issue that people rose was that the government is not using its infrastructure, its security, and its people properly, as desired by the people. People want adequate security personnel around the farms, around the vulnerable points. The Chief Minister himself said that there are about 34 to 40 vulnerable points around the Manipur Valley, and it needs to be protected. It was never done. And if you take up the recent incident of at Jiribam, we noticed that the militants who fired upon the convoy, they were making their camps quite near to some central security forces, and they were on the highway. And highway is very important for the nation. It is not a state highway, it is a national highway. It is giving the need of the people, it is supplying all the essential commodities. I think those issues are also important. And I would like to touch, taking this opportunity, I would like to touch upon an issue. That is the human issue. Because I am more concerned about the youth of the people now. We are more concerned about the youth of the people, the education sector, the economics, the economy of the state. Those are very important. Now the youths are demoralized. Their hope on the government has decreased. Their dependence on the government have decreased. They are thinking that the government is not doing anything for the state and for the people, is not doing adequately. So I think to help the people, especially the youth, we need to take up certain measures. Because as we mentioned, we are only concerned about the security measures. We also have to deal about the health, especially mental health, and then the welfare of the children. And as we showed in the last year, internet was shut down, students were suffering, everybody was suffering. So I think
we had a very short technical error. We do apologize for the inconvenience. Now we will continue. Please continue again. Satyajeet, we are online. We are online now.
Okay. Yes. Sorry for the disturbance. And as we were referring to the security aspects being taken up, say I have been discussing about the problems faced by the youths, because they need assistance. And during the last few months, I have been covering some relief centers. And I found that most of the children, they are quite disillusioned. And they said, and there were some cases of the children attempting suicide, and one particular student committed suicide because his parents were not able to pay the fee, because their life has been changed, their income has been cut off. So I think the government, rather than thinking only about security also, has to take up certain measures also, human measures, just like education sector. And in this aspect, what I feel is that the government should depute at least one official. I mean, the official should be for example, in certain banks, we have certain counters where you can do every sort of transactions. You can pay also cash, you can also withdraw cash. So we need an all certain agencies where they have to deal all the departments, and they can transfer their inconveniences to the concerned officials, and their problems can be solved. Those are the certain issues which I took the opportunity to convey to the people. And as I said, the Chief Minister commands about 1,000 government employees and about 30,000 soldiers. Besides that, as you said, more troops will be coming. These troops were already there in Manipur. They came within a few days, they were airdropped. But the problem is, if you have the money, if you have the resources, but if you are not buying the necessary goods for your children, then what's the purpose of the money you have? That is the question we ask. And we are saying that if you have the security personnel, you have the ability to do it. But the problem is, we are concerned with the apathy of the center to the sufferings of the people of Manipur. The government is this concerned about the suffering of the people. That is what people feel, and that was reflected in the last election. And if you should look at all the discussions and all the problems people said. So what we say is, whoever comes here, they should be used properly, and they should be responsible to the government. And we have a certain problem with the agencies here. Because we discussed the role of the Assam Rifles, we discussed role of some central agencies who are localized. We say we are localized because the agencies are involved in the state politics. Because they have been involved in making some militant, especially from Myanmar, those who are coming from Myanmar, make a suspension of operation in 2005, and all their leaders, they become naturalized Indians. So I think we need to involve certain central agencies who are not involved in state politics, and those who are not involved, and they should do their work judiciously and help the people of Manipur so that we can have peace. And I think this is a time when the center has to realize that the people are emotionally charged. People are very unhappy, and people are very disillusioned. The anxiety level is very high. And as I was discussing with one of my friends, psychiatrist in Jennings, he told me that prior to the crisis, the number of people suffering from anxiety was very less. Now it is quite high. So we can expect that if the problem is not resolved, we'll have a new generation, an entire generation will be suffering from anxiety, from depression, and who will not be able to think properly. And that is not a good sign for Manipur. I think the best thing is to resolve the crisis immediately. And I think during this election also, we got 2 MPs elected, though not peacefully, though we have to say peacefully. And I think during those elections, because I just remember, because during one of the discussion, some of the candidates, they were discussing with the people. The people, they said that they want leaders, as we were discussing in the first round, that people who can assert themselves, that who are not afraid of the high command. And we have to remember that we have seen lots of member of parliaments, we have seen lots of MLAs who spoke against their own chief minister, who spoke against their own party leaders, if it is in the interest of the people, if it is in the interest of the state. I think people should rise above politics. People should rise above their petty political party politics, and they should rise to the occasion. I think this is a time when we need leaders who like Hizam Irabad, Nelson Mandela, so that Manipur can see a bright future. Thank you.
Very beautiful point, Ojha Satyajeet. I'll come back to you again in the next round. Regarding when Ojha Satyajeet mentioned regarding the High Command, I'd like to just recall that a few days ago, the RSS chief, Sri Mohan Bhagawat, he also expressed a very strong point regarding the Manipur issue, and that he said it should be resolved in a very priority manner. And also we all know that the BJP is such a party that also has a very high regard for the High Command. And do you think that after the statements made by the RSS chief, and today we just heard from the news that the Home Minister is also constituting a high security level meeting regarding Manipur, because earlier usually the question I was going for, because before that was, we know that very swiftly whenever there is any kind of issue in Jammu and Kashmir regarding terrorist attacks, the actions are very swift when it comes to Kashmir issues, any kind of terrorist attacks or infiltrators in Kashmir. But when it comes to Manipur, we have been really voicing our voices for the past year, and there are not just 5 or 6 infiltrators, but hundreds of infiltrators in Manipur from Myanmar, from the west. So we have sensed some kind of discrepancies or discriminations from the center. So putting all of this together, do you think that there has been a change of attitude after the RSS chief made that statement? What are your thoughts, Depen?
Okay, to begin with the last question that you have raised, why the central government respond differently?
Yes.
When things are happening in Jammu Kashmir and when things are happening here in Manipur, we need to consider 2 things. One is the historical background of that particular specific geographical area where the problem is occurring. So if you compare the historical background, they are quite different things, okay? The conflict in Manipur, which has got international implications also in the regional security, related issues, is quite different from what you see there in the northwestern frontier regions, which has been quite a different culture, history compared to this side, right? This side, I think government of India has more or less been able to work with the Myanmar government to large extent, whether it is junta or a democratic form of government, by investing a lot of money, and then lot many things are going on in commercial and trade relationship, right? Not only security, but lot many things are happening here in much more consensual manners than compared to what is happening with Pakistan. So you have to look into the current relationship that is there. On the other side, it has always been strained. On this side, there has been good time, bad time now perhaps, right? And then of course here you have, well, the only thing that is common is in both the, in both the situation you see China sitting in the background. That's the only common thing. But the fields are different, Field where the government is engaging in the northeastern region is very different from the engagement in the northwestern frontier. That is one. Second thing is, okay, fine, I'll leave that behind, but then I'll come back to the second question, which you were talking about, referring to Mohan Bhagat's speech.
Yes, his statement,
and seem to have had some impact on the way the central government is now responding post the election, right? Yes. Now, what is a post-election? The Lok Sabha of the previous one is no more that one. The strength is reduced, right? Because now it is a coalition government, all right? Coalition government. And then with reduced number of BJP elected members in the floor of the parliament tells quite a lot of things in the strength and capacities of the central government of BJP now, although it is predominantly BJP. That's something that we need to consider. And then you say, like, if you look at the, you can look at the situations, like from an idealistic point of view, which Dr. Noni has just shared about how center-state relationships should work, okay, but we see, at the same time we also need to understand what is actually happening in terms of center-state relationship. Now, to begin with that question, I'd like to first begin with a conceptual idea. Whenever we talk about, see, what we're talking about is a conflict situation, right? A conflict that is live and happening here in Manipur. We're talking about that. So when you say conflict, the meaning behind that, as we understand, is an issue in the relationship between any two parties, right? Here the focus is on Meitei Naga for the time being, all right? We're also talking about center-state relationship, right? So these two are relationships they are talking about. And then if we are always trying to measure it with what should be ideally the relationship, then we may not get down to what is actually happening on the ground. So Our perspective should begin from what is actually on the background, happening on the background. Now, if you look at the last 3 tenures, now the third term of the BJP, you have seen a centralizing tendency, okay, which was already challenging. This is pan-India, right? Which was already challenging the center-state federal relationship. So you have a government which is centralizing power all the time, right? Through legislation, policies, and even political aspirations or political future political vision. And BJP has got their future political vision very clear. And accordingly, they are also coming up new legislation to the extent that people are afraid of, throwing out the whole constitution and coming up with a new one. To that extent, this is extreme thought. Of course, I agree. Yes. But then that is the nature of the government that we are working with. That we need to understand. So therefore, every state in India, not only Manipur, this one, in every state across India, there is bound to be center-state relationship which will get strained, and then there will be tensions, and then most probably then the violence will break out. So what I'm trying to say is that what we talk as conflict is something about relationship, okay? And then conflict begins when you realize that there is some strained relationship strain, which become very tense, and you can feel it in the society. People begin to express it, and then if you still are not able to put that strained relationship all right, correct it, then it turns into violence. So these are the stages through which conflict begins, right? So what you see in Manipur is a fully blown out conflict, which is already into violent conflict, and then this is happening, as I said, between what is called as horizontal relationship, that is relationship between the people, the communities in Manipur, horizontal, okay? These relationships are strained. Why these relations are strained? Because the vertical relationship, which is what? The center-state relationship has never been okay. It has been strained, tense, and so therefore, and what made it tense? Because here in this region between Manipur and Nagaland in particular, now as of now, has something called insurgency, right? Insurgency, and wherever there is insurgency, there is something called vertical conflict, that is between the state and non-state actors. So this is what began with, in the case of northeastern region as such, and also in the case of Manipur and Nagaland, it was partly in Mizoram, which has got sorted out over a period of time. But then this is something that is actually happening, which has become fully blown, because then you have AFASPA, right? From 1980 onwards. So how long this violent conflict is going on also tells us that government of India has not been able to solve the relationship issue here. All right. So this is something that we need to acknowledge, that the government has failed. That's why the government, I'm talking about government functioning, not functioning, but I'm saying that government has failed to sort out the problem without using violence, all right? Indeed. Without calling. Now, let me reflect on, with this framework in my mind, let me reflect on recent mobilization of Central Armed Police Force moving into the state. You're talking about some 60,000-80,000 figure, right? Yes. Now, see, my opinion on this is that this is something long due actually. What is coming on now can be known as peacekeeping force. All right, the peacekeeping force has very specific roles to play in a given conflict which has gone violent. They have to stand in between and then stop both sides from firing against one another. That's the role they have to first do. This was long overdue. Only when you stop the violence, then you can take the next step of talking to one another. And this is where the central government has also played a critical role of creating a space, providing enough fund, and getting people over the table to talk to one another. Right. Because when people are fighting, none of them will come forward to talk to one another. All right. This is very emotional and a very sensitive issue. No one will be. People would rather discourage, talking to the other side. This is what is happening in our society today. This is happening on the cookie side also, if you want to know, right? On both sides, there is a lot of restriction and restraint from even talking about peace. All right. So this is a stage. Once you stop the violent conflict by placing in between the peacekeeping force, and what we need to do now here, which is very critical for all the civil society and media person, is now that we have to voluntarily, as media and also civil society, closely monitor the performance of these new forces which are being deployed in what you call as red zones, how they are actually responding. because they have come there, have the violent incident has gone down. Have people begin to have the courage to talk to one another. These two are the indicators we have to look into very closely. And if over a period of 3 months to 6 months, there is no change, then we can say there is something wrong in the duty description of these new flaws. And we must ask the government to take them back, all right? Because we don't want to complete the situation anymore. People are seeking for peace, right? Even in the midst of the war, why people are fighting war is because at the end they think peace will be there, all right? The only difference is that both will not get the peace, one will get, the winner will get the peace. Now when we talk about peace, we're talking about both getting the peace equally, without any compromise on other sides, right? Without any inequality on other sides. That's the peace formulas that we talk about. So therefore, what I'm trying to say now, just to highlight again, is to now it's time for us to monitor very closely the performance of these new forces being deployed in the red zones. We need to find out how many red zones are there, how many deployments, how many troops are being deployed, and what are the duty descriptions given to them. This is something that media has to call out actually by asking, right? By interviewing some security advisor of the state now, all right? What are the duties, what are the roles that they're going to play in this violent conflict? And if you feel that they are not doing the roles that is appropriate given the situation, to stop the violence, and also initiating a process, something called confidence building measures, that by which people will be enabled, right, empowered or capacitated, rather motivated to talk to sort out the problems that they have, right? If these two things are not happening over a period of time, 6 months to, I don't even take it 1 year, but 6 months is enough time, right? Then perhaps it's time for all the people to say that, send them back, okay? Because then they are not doing their proper work that we expect, all right? So the basic role of these troops coming into violent conflict is that if they are not doing it, why should they be there at the cost of people's money? This is very important. You know, how much money has been spent over the last 13 months in Manipur? It's in terms of crores. I mean, it must have gone to huge amount by far, right? Some people calculated something around 5 crores or 6 crores per day, right? If you multiply that, right? It's a huge amount of money you have already wasted here, I'm saying. Not only wasted the money, but lives, precious lives of the people, and the opportunity cost of the future generations. You know, our friends have talked about. The youth, the children who are there in the school, it's a huge loss, all right? Now it's a time for the central government to start investing their money for peace processes, right? If they don't do it, then the people will have problem with them. So people will fight back for their peace, because the peace that the government is seeking for and people should be seeking for should not be two different things, right? Security and peace that we talk about. Thank you for that.
Very, very elaborately put by Oja Deben, and I'd like to move on to Oja Noni, and you can supplement to our previous panelists as well. And also I'd like to know from you that we have been discussing regarding this high security meeting of the Home Minister that was held today. And the thing is that regarding the Home Minister's speeches in the past 1 year that he has made regarding the issue in Manipur. First, he said that the High Court's order of the Meiteis demanding the scheduled tribe status was the trigger for this violence. And again, a few months later in the parliament, monsoon parliament, he said that this conflict is caused by illegal Kuki infiltrators. And then again, just recently, regarding when the election was near, he said that this is caused by a trust deficit between the Kuki and the Meitei communities. So in order to bring peace, there needs to be a trust building process. So these are so many varying statements that has been made by the Home Minister. And again, we hear that there is a high security level meeting, and it could also be another meeting just to take stock of the situation, as you earlier mentioned as well. So how do you look at that? Because these statements, they don't align, and it looks like the Home Minister has no full depth knowledge regarding the issue in Manipur, and also he is still trying to say that he is going to solve it. So yeah, please supplement previous points, and also this is my question to you.
I think first of all, you rightly put when I say that there were a lot of inconsistent statements coming from the officials. That is very true in the sense that if you look at the algorithm of all the statements, these statements have different webs, in fact, web lengths, in fact. So it's true to say that that these different ways of identifying Manipur problem has run short of resolving the conflict.
Right.
That's one. Moreover, the kind of meeting, there's a lot of expectation from the ongoing meeting, perhaps because people have been waiting for the right intervention, which has not been forthcoming. So therefore, I think the anxiety, the excitement of people and expectation from the ongoing meeting today is because people have been looking forward to these kind of meetings, which perhaps had never happened before in the way it probably is happening today. So since the new government has come, expectations have also increased, but there is a fatigue also. There is a fatigue. There is a fatigue in the sense there's a fatigue in terms of expectation as well. If you look at the statements coming from the Myra Pipes, you can see there's a withdrawal kind of a trust. There's a growing trust deficit between the governmental institution and the public sphere.
Right.
So, but at the same time, what I feel is that government of India and its apparatuses have not really dealt with the emergent, the urgent, serious issues that we have. For instance, the highways have been blocked for months and years. Now there is a weaponization of highways. If you look at today's story of Ziribam, where trucks had to retreat because some women folk came out and they stopped them from plying on the highways, which is a violation of the rule of the land, and which is also a kind of a creation of a humanitarian crisis, because the essential commodities, the food items that is being carried on by the drivers on these highways are not meant only for one community. This is an item which is consumed, which is meant to be consumed by everybody in the state. So there are certain basic things which have, which are not looked into by the government. As I said, the highway, for instance, and also there are a lot of new strategic movements coming from the other side, that is particularly Kuki side, say demanding for a mini airport, for example, demanding for a union territory or statehood. But if you look at the origin of the crisis, it was more about expressing their disapproval of Métis becoming ST. Now you can see the exponential growth in the nature of the demand itself, which has directly come forward to breaking of Manipur's territorial integrity. So now people have been talking about invoking Article 3 and dismantling Manipur into pieces, which actually sounds very risky for the tranquility of the state. And tomorrow is June 18, which is a very significant day for Manipuri people, because they probably do not want to repeat these kind of narrative, this kind of incident, because that was a very unwanted, undesired event that happened, loss of a lot of lives. So I think Manipur being a multicultural...
What I was expecting was government of India should have told very clearly.
It looks like we have lost your sound a bit there.
Manipur being a multicultural state, there should be no sectarian ethnicizing demand, which is not going to be entertained. But there are clues to also argue that government of India has on and off said that they will not actually compromise with the integrity of the state. That is also giving some kind of a consolation, some kind of a comfort to the valley people, particularly Métis, because Amit Shah has been saying this very frequently, and the people's government even said that. So, on the whole, I think what is missing is that the present meeting, which we have heard,
Sounds more like a security.
but what we were expecting was from the government was to talk more about the political nature of the conflict, how it can be resolved. For instance, we expected that a government of India will make a kind of a statement to the communities involved that ceasefire first.
Okay.
Don't block the roads. Don't disturb civilian movement on the highway.
Right.
Do not take law into your hands. These are not being dictated by government. And there lies the problem, I guess. So instead of using a military approach, instead of using a securitizing approach, I think government of India needs to use a political approach to make these communities who are trying to sort of use this conflict as a means, as a stepping ladder for achieving higher political ends, which will only end up balkanizing not only Manipur, but also the entire region. I mean, when I say region, I mean Myanmar, I mean Bangladesh, I mean Northeast India, and the entire region, the entire Southeast Asian region. So people, first of all, the government of India will also need to win the trust of the people, because there is a lot of trust deficit. If you look at the narrative coming up in the public domain, you can see a sense of distrust is very high among the people, particularly the valley people are now beginning to distrust the government, which is a matter of concern, which can escalate the conflict as well. So on the whole, I think the security paradigm needs to be rethought about. What needs to be done is more of a democratic engagement and more of a telling of the communities not to use ethnic cards to polarize people, to actually ethnicize people, to indulge in violence. That kind of thing has to be taken up. And finally, I'm feeling that people who are taking law into their own hands must stop being democratic and law-abiding country.
Very beautiful points, Ojanoni. We have come to the last segment of our episode, but I would have liked to go separately to each of our panelists, but because we have time constraint, I'd like to just put one political development in the state, and then I'll just give it open to the floor. The thing is that on the day of the election results, we have seen that the jury bomb of violence had broke out and also the return of on the day of the Chief Minister returning from Delhi, there was his convoy being ambushed, and we have seen all of these developments, and him first promising to visit Jiribam and also cancelling at the last minute. And again, on the western side of the state, there is this chaos and tragedy in Jiribam, and also in a recent development that was featured in today's newspaper, there has been a case of refugee infiltration at Tecnopal, because last month we have seen that the same situation happening in Kamzong, and there has been a lot of issue that was spoken out from the locals there, and now this has reached now to the southern, almost to the southeastern part of the state, that is in Tecnopal. So we are not sure if this will continue to other districts of the state, and it looks like the state, the fringes of the state is open to violence and open to refugees. It looks like Manipur is the playground for conflict and refugees. So this is my question to our three panelists in the last segment. So please put your points and your closing remarks in brief, and then we'll end the program. As I said, Satyajeet will start.
Yes. I think we are coming to a certain point where people will have to hold talks. And in this aspect, I would like to send a message to some people who are demanding some sort of self-governance, that you cannot demand what is not yours. Right. Manipur belongs to all of us. Manipur belongs to all the 34, 35, 36 communities. We had been living together for a very, very long time, and you should stop demanding what is not yours. Manipur does not belong to one particular community, it belongs to us. And the second aspect, which I would say that we have faced lots of problems in Jiribam and Tecnopal. Unluckily or luckily, we have lots of neighbors, and all our neighbors are in crisis, whether it's in Myanmar, whether it's Nepal or Bangladesh. So there's a tendency for people to go to separate places. And since Manipur, even though we are in crisis, it is completely considered as a safe place for those people in Myanmar. So we have to form a strategy internally so that we can stop this infiltration, and we should help them return safely to their homes. And coming to since we don't have much time, I would say that the government of India should stop thinking only from the security perspective, because right. In today's meeting, if you find today who were present, only the Home Secretary was present, the Chief of Army Staff, then the designated Chief of Army Staff, the intelligence officers, and some officers were present. And those are all concerned with the military and intelligence. There were no officers from education department or whatsoever. So the government should start thinking from a different perspective, because if you look at the history of Manipur, if you see who were the governors, they were mostly retired army chiefs. So the government of India looks into Manipur perspective, the Manipur issue from a security perspective. Everything is seen as a security perspective. And what we people living in Manipur feel is that we have been used as a pawn in a great chase game, and we are in the front. We are the front soldiers, we are the plebeians, we are the in the front, and the generals who are sitting behind, they are using us as indispensable people who can be killed, who can be manipulated, and they can do whatever they want. And I think this is a time to convey to the masters sitting in New Delhi or wheresoever that enough is enough. You have to deal us like humans. We are humans, and if you do not deal humans as humans, then the humans will start raising their voice, and the people of Manipur are known as great freedom fighters. They have been fighting for the great Manipur nation, which is till 1949. After 1949, even though we became part of India, Manipur has a long legacy of fighting against invasions, fighting of illegal immigrants or whosoever, and we shall be doing whatsoever is required. So the government of India should recognize our contributions, should recognize our capacity, and they should see the positive sides also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deben, please give your closing remarks.
If you look at what is happening in Jiribam today over the last few weeks, is something that is not known to anybody. In fact, the building processes were going on even before the elections were declared. All right. Then government might say that, look, election came and so we were not able to do anything. All kind of excuses will be there. But it is not known to the state, right, with so much about security deployment and layers, intelligence and all that. But what you see, if you look back after May 3, what you also see has also happened is also some big events that have taken place. You first begin with Chorachandpur. Today, no Meiteis can go to Chorachandpur, no Kukis can go to Imphal, right? So there is something called buffer zone, which I don't understand what exactly it is. Second thing happened at, side by side Kampupi thing happened, right? At Kampupi again the same thing happening. There is a rupture or a breakdown of all kinds of relationship there. And then third thing happened was More. Yes. More is completely more or less sealed, so to say, right? So these are the very important place which is not only habited by different communities, but also important towns. And also third thing is transit.
Of course.
Transit points, right? Transit points. So what is happening with all these transit points, townships, right? Where people used to live together is something very clear to us now. This is what is being tried in Jiribam. And why it is happening so is something that government would only know. I don't want to speculate on that, and I should not take risks also speaking about it, right? So you need to understand what this conflict is all about, what are the objectives about this conflict, why it has taken so long, all of that. You'll find some kind of answer. Everybody will find an answer to that, right? So, but it is unfortunate if you look at it from humanitarian point of view, humanism as such. It's another tragedy, fourth tragedy that is taking place, and this is happening right under the nose of the government. All right. So people don't want this thing to happen, and it's where everything is now taking a shift. The focus taking a shift with the political changes right in the center, and also RSS headquarters speaking about something about it. So we do expect some kind of a turnaround or turning point of managing this. So far what has been happening is managing the conflict, right? So someone is managing the conflict and allowing it to go the way it wants it to go, right? Now it's time for us to address or resolve, all right? So I expect and very hopeful that with this advice from the RSS headquarters and also the recent mandate from the state and also at the national level would certainly make a turning point towards resolving the conflict. And that's why we are talking about some initiatives being taken. And if those things taken up, all of these blocked points that we are talking about should also be reviewed in the way of settling the dispute or settling the conflict, right? Because after all, there is no dispute over what people often say, that you can't change the neighbor. You can change your friends. You can't change the neighbor. You may have killed one another, but for the sake of your future children, you have to settle it today. Otherwise, you'll be handing over another war field. And no parents, responsible people, responsible leaders of other communities, and the parents in particular would never like to get their children to be thrown in the fire, right? They would always like their children to live in a very peaceful environment so that they blossom like flowers according to their talents and merits, right? So that's what the aspiration of every people is, whether you are a military person or political person or ordinary parents, right? This is a common aspiration of the people, and I think the direction must change now towards peace processes, and the government has very critical role to play, and I wish and pray that government does not anymore create any situation to further loss of trust on the government. This is very important.
Very good point, yes,
Thank
very good point. Yeah, moving on to Oja Noni, please make your closing remarks. I'm very sorry, but today I think your mic seems to have a little issue, but can you speak a little louder so that... Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I just want to say that, I think you're raising a very important question on the coming of the outsiders.
Yes.
On this for this round. I simply want to say that every state has a right to accept people and not to accept people. But I have to say that there should be humanitarian assistance given to people who are displaced. But at the same time, the government has every right to refuse people having fugitive background, not to make them enter into a new territory.
Right.
At the same time, the government must take the initiative to actually document people who are coming and who are going. That will really help in sustaining peace in the region, because we belong to a very fragile geopolitical region. Thank you.
Very beautifully put, Oja Noni, and also to our all panelists. I'd like to thank you all once again for being here and giving us your thoughts and very insightful opinions and your thoughts. Thank you all once again, Oja Satyajeet, Oja Deben, and Oja Noni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank our panelists for tuning in tonight. Do tune us again next Monday. We will be back again with more exciting topics. Until then, have a good night.